All right, well, we went through the basic production for the second turn, and as is often the case in this game, and the table's skewed that way, food production ended up not being any bonus for anyone. Sometimes somebody gets a bonus in it, and that kind of incites trade this early. Some people have some shortfalls again. Over here, the far west only has 28. Remember, they have 30 people. Southwest 32, they have 35 people. In the Northeast and the Midwest broke even on their food requirements, but that means they have no additional food that they can throw into consumer points. Now, they have some stockpiled food. And it's kind of important to try to set yourself up so you can keep that stockpile, but it's not a huge amount. It's good enough if they need to build consumer points. Some of these others, the far west and southwest, they're going to have to dip into their stockpiles. And given the nature of the economy right now, it's going to be tough to find anybody willing to spend a fuel point to trade with you. Well, they may not have to spend a fuel point. For the far west, it's going to require a fuel point for a trade. Because it's 90 each way or something. For other people, they well, the Midwest and the Southwest are adjacent, and the Midwest and Northeast are adjacent. And the Midwest may allow transit through their territory, but they may have to either be included in some sort of trade or receive some sort of tax for it. Chances are they'd allow it for a few bucks or something, so it's not that big a deal, because money isn't that important in this game. But there's not a lot of incentive for most people to really get themselves involved in trade. So if the Southwest and Northeast could come to a trade, they actually have one, maybe not this turn, but in the near future, just because the Northwest has a real problem. Oh no, both have a problem with metal, actually. Yeah. No, it's the Midwest that's rich, and they're sitting in the middle, and they're going to be the ones who are going to more or less probably drive the industrialization there, and that puts them in a rich and powerful position. Okay, well, now kind of you conduct your consumption at the same time that you're keeping an eye on the trade round. Like, you basically pre-decide what you're going to do in the consumption and then make trades. You got to be kind of flexible in this, otherwise you're going to force people to do all kind of pre-planning, and then when they actually get to this step, they have to redo it or have it all written down somewhere, and there's nowhere on here that you write this down. Secondary production was kind of interesting here. Some of the choices were really tough. First of all, for example, the far west couldn't make only mechs. They had to build their reserve transport here that they lost. That's kind of a given. Everybody bought consumer points. Basically, everybody was at an odd number of total capacity. And that works out well. In some cases, the consumer points had dropped low enough that I couldn't get up to social state 1 again. And I think I do want to get there with most of them. Anybody who wants to do a plebiscite definitely has to. I'm not sure many people have the cash for it. The Deep South does, and they have strong reasons to expand, actually. And getting out of this, taking a minus 10% penalty on a 6 seems valuable, but that's going to take a lot of work. Getting big, like I said, I don't think it works well. But it's been a long time since I've played, so I can't be absolutely certain about that. So some people may try playing around with that idea. It may have become something that was fixated in my mind after a first playing, and I've just held it as a rule. Don't grow. It's not worth it. Other people have some issues, though, where they're cutting things really, really close. So, for example, the Northeast is out of metal at this point. They don't have a lot of metal sites, and they have a strong desire to perhaps expand into here. Canada's an option. Canadian expansion costs double, however, what normal expansion costs. That's not that big a deal. It's only in cash money that it costs extra, so kind of appealing to maybe stretch out this way to get a couple of these metal as well. This is the big prize, though, for everyone. So if only one person's up at social state 1, they might grab that. Let me see. Other people had problems. Really, the factor right now is kind of this, all right, I've got to spend the consumer points to get all my sectors up because it's the weaker sectors I need to make technologically advanced, but in general, maybe my stronger, more important ones were already advanced. So for example, the Midwest is okay with its metal production. At sector state 0, I can only have 1 person per space though. At sector state 1, I go up to 2 per, and I'm getting close to that limit right now. Right now I'm fine, but then if we look over at fuel, well, I have very few sites. If I'm going to start producing large quantities of consumer points, I need to be producing fuel as well. Large quantities of consumer points, how important are they? That's what you need to get to sector state 2 in your farm sector. And the farm sector is actually kind of problematic. Right now, it's serving as a limitation for some people. Not here. I've still got some flex where I can move extra mechs into that, and that's something I want to do, but in order to feed my folk. But over here, I'm already at the limit of the number of mechs I can be using there, which means if I want to increase my production, I have to start moving labor into the farm sector, which might mean plebiscites. That's not a possibility yet, though. Yes, it is. Consumption comes before the political stuff. So I can actually grow some of these governments before next term, and that might help my situation quite a bit. All right, we're moving to the trade round. There's a possibility of trade here. I have to look and think, and I need a break to do that. This game is very painful to do in, 4 players, all solitaire. Well, in the consumption phase, Far West decided not to expand. They got away with it. They have a lot of laborers over here in what? I don't know where they have a lot. I'm trying to find this. They had a decent amount of consumer points. I'm trying to figure out why they were able to survive this. They got 1 laborer there that's not in use, and none here. I think they were rolling on the worst table. They only saved 1 point by shorting the transportation sector, but a consumer point is a nice thing. I mean, of course, it could go to the surplus table here, the shrinkage or whatever. Yeah. Southwest decided to pay out its consumer points and actually get itself up to social state 1. They want to push their way towards here. Now, interestingly, the Northeast should want to do that. They have a decent amount of cash. The problem is they only have 1 reserve transportation, so they could end up with a poor area that way. I rolled a die. They decided not to go for it because they didn't build the transportation. They need to build their mechanization up, and they're not really expecting anyone to move on that. The Midwest is probably the least interested. The Midwest actually ended up with a higher social state because they had a big strike, and that cost them like 7 consumer points that they had stockpiled. They were basically on the lowest table. They had about 1-to-1 parity of the extra points, but they did not manage to survive it. The Northeast did survive, or did not survive it. I think it paid probably 1 extra for its transportation sector. They actually boosted their metal sector so that they can get more laborers into it, because that's been their limitation at this point. Now we're on the plebiscites, the people who have social state 1. No, it's not the Northeast, which is the Southwest and Midwest, can think about playing a plebiscite, and the Southwest is planning on it. So let's do this. Essentially, each player drops these things to indicate that they're going to do one. Now, the Midwest could contest this, but contesting just means it's going to be more expensive for both people, really. This is desirable in terms of a space next to the Southwest. That would be, but the problem for the Midwest is they don't have a whole lot of money. 16 bucks. You might need that for investment. I'm holding off with them, even though they can do it. However, the Southwest, seeing they're the only person in there, can calculate out, okay, this is an area worth 1. If I get it on the +7 chart, it cost me 8 bucks. And now I own it. Bang! Plebiscite goes away. I get it in good control because everything's in a G. That's why I had to spend so much. I could have taken a risk, but it's really terrible to do so. This goes up. I get 5 extra population, but there are no sites here. So it all has to go into the farm sector, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I'm going to have to move people into other sectors, though, so it would have been nice to have things in a site. And now I have to move my transportation reserve into the domestic transportation. And now I have 8 areas. Once I go above 10, well, there's a problem. Then I'm spending 2 fuel a turn just to exist. But it also puts me on this better food table. So, you know, you got to decide what you're doing. You get more income off of a bigger economy. But again, cash isn't that big a deal. Nobody else was doing anything there. And now we go to the finance round, which is when I actually allocate my mechs. They probably should have been allocated earlier. But that's just how I like to do things. As I'm looking at the stockpile labor reallocation for the Midwest, I've done the Northeast. I swing different directions, different times. It doesn't really make much difference. I have, the first time I've seen this in this session, an output that I haven't stockpiled, that I haven't used up. I'm actually producing an excess of metal. Now, if I leave that out there, it's going to depress my metal production next turn, and it's going to cause unemployed people and all kind of problems. So I've got to worry about that. And for a metal, it cost me $3 to stockpile that. And I simply do the obvious. I drop an output out of here and I push it up into the stockpile. Some things are much cheaper. Food, for example, and fuel are both cheaper than that. But this is not a bad position to be in. Everybody else is kind of cutting into their stockpiles. It's good to actually be producing more of things. And that's where we get to in this game is eventually you do start needing money to stockpile your goods. You need to start trading stuff with people so you don't have to stockpile it, so you can get stuff that you can use. And these relationships build up. The problem is learning what those relationships should be in a 10-turn game doesn't give you enough time to really help each other. This is not a game that you can pick up and play, even with a group of 4 people all willing to kind of work together, and expect anybody to win. And I'm not really expecting anybody to win within the time period. It may be possible beyond that. But everybody's cutting things really close to the bone right now, and I think we're going to see some disasters, just in terms of the economics not working out. You have to so finely tune everything. And if you leave yourself leeway, that's what I used to do, well, it became clear you couldn't win. So you gotta take your risks in this. But even then, the only saving grace is maybe somebody's got a surplus in food when you go down or something. But you'll probably end up paying in mechs or something you can't afford. Anyway, we are going to see the Midwest and the Northeast do a corruption against the Southwest. And the Southwest bought a corruption chit that'll give them some protection. But they're going to see some tax revenue reduction because of their advance here. That's seen as a threat. And for the effect of the corruption, this had all been pre-plotted. These guys threw 4 in. I've got 1. I can decrease that by 1. The Southwest only had a 20% tax rate. In fact, most of the people have cut down to fairly low tax rates. It's kind of weird as there's no lower tax rates. You feel like there should have been a lower column. In fact, maybe, I don't know, almost no tax. A government has to tax to exist, but I don't know. Anyway, let's see what we get here. We had a 3 corruption chit net against them. So they're going to lose 10% of their tax revenue. Well, their tax revenue was only $10, so they lose $1, which is less than the cost of the excess corruption chits. Corruption does not work on a low-taxed society. But you don't know what your opponent's going to tax, because one of the kind of unrealistic things here, now these are, I think, each supposed to be 10-year periods, maybe 5 years, because every 4 turns you get a population increase, so that's supposed to be a generation or something. I don't know. I'm going to look in the rules to see. I'm sure they tell you the scale. No SPI game wouldn't do that, right? Yeah, I'm not seeing it real simply. Well, I think they're 5-year turns actually, but anyway, something I was gonna say there. I don't remember what. Yeah, you're able to swing your tax policy, you know, from 10% taxation to 50% without any real internal disruption. Areas would not remain in good or poor connection. There would be possibilities of rebellion and such if you allowed your tax rate to fluctuate that much. But, well, desperate times or something. Anyway, so far the 3 players feel like they're doing okay. They've slowed down the economic engines just because they don't have the raw materials for the output. They're increasing their industrial capacity, but it's not increasing at the rates it was. And they're also trying to throw things into other sectors. So you see here, I got my 1 extra mech that the sector state allowed me. I could throw 3 consumer points instead of 1 into the metal sector next turn and raise it to sector state 2, and then I'd get another mech. But that's it. That's all the metal that, you know, I have available, really. You're seeing production in food skyrocketing at this point as people get close. Here we're looking at, 22 mechs, 42, 46 total food. However, I grew. I have 40 people. So it looked like a huge amount, but it really isn't. It would be tough to take. You know, a 10% hit would be palatable because I have some stock left. I'd still be able to buy my consumer points, but a 20% hit would have me putting people on the starving list if I can't find food somewhere else. Still have the Far West to do. Well, we hit the end of the turn, and depreciation, yeah, that's what I'm using that red die for, so I don't have to roll twice for each action. Depreciation had 1 kind of minor big hit. The Northeast lost a mech, which came off their food. We're getting to the point, and this, you know, you feel like everything's churning along really well at this point because you got enough mechs, right? You're getting to the point where I'm at about as good as I can do at Social State 1. A lot of the people are filling up their situation. We had the 26 to 30 mech range here. I don't remember how many exactly. 10, 15, 16, 20, 26 mechs. There's not a lot more I can do. I only have 30 people. 4 more mechs is the maximum I can run at Sector States 1. No, well, that's not entirely true. Is it? Yes, it is. That is the absolute maximum. Sites may limit that even further, but it looks like I'm okay the way I'm distributed, that I could push more people into these different markets. I've pushed some people out of the metal market, but this is really where it kind of lands. Most of the extra slack is over here in the industrial market. I might have to move some laborers out of that and equalize it. But the truth is, I have to stick myself up to Sector State 2 in something, probably metal. I got 4 sites that will eat up 4 more mechs, give me more production, then industrial will go up, and it all looks like it's going good. But the big jump is, of course, the farm one, where I've got 15 laborers. That's going to take 15 consumer points to do. Now, this between it would be taking 13. So, it's a more gradual growth, first the metal, then the industrial. But that big jump to 15 is a tough one to make. And then eventually, or 15 more. And then eventually I fill out the rest, which wouldn't be hard if I can get sort of a maintainable engine to reach that social state or sector state 2 in farming, metal, and industry. Then it would not look like it doesn't look like it gets hard to continue from there. So it looks very optimistic right now, but I've felt that way before. Now it's been, well over a decade since I've played this. So it's hard to remember precisely, how optimistic things felt for me in some of the others. The Southwest definitely looks like it has trouble because of the lack of metal. And they're beginning to do some saber rattling. Hey, look, you corrupted me, you bastards. What the hell's up with that? I pretty much need this. If you deny me this, what am I going to do? Am I going to build an army? Because that's kind of what you're leaving me with. And then none of us can win. Then the Far West will win. Let me have that. Stop messing with me. And, to tell you the truth, nobody really cares about it to the degree he does. Midwest has plenty of industrial sites. You can build more. They have plenty of metal. They could definitely use the fuel, but there's fuel not really close to them. But if they can work out deals where they're passing metal for fuel, it'll probably work out okay, even if it means both sides have to stockpile, because trade comes after the secondary production. You kind of wish you could have trade at both segments so that you could do some trade of raw materials and actually produce them. But no, you actually have to store them, so they have a higher cost when you trade them anyhow. Over with the Northwest or Northeast, they are okay on everything except metal, but they do have other metal available to them. Not a lot. Up here, that looks like it's it. And this is where the competition comes. It's the metal competition. If they both go for plebiscites, they could end up spending fortunes and end up with it in poor control. The Midwest is probably willing to stay out of this. All right. Well, the Southwest just got maybe their opportunity here. A huge food surplus. They've got 55 food now. They only need 40 of that for feeding themselves. The rest of it, they need, a little bit more they need for consumer points. But other than that, maybe they got some for trade. And the Northeast, who was cutting it, they had to get a full food production or else they'd be in trouble. They have no remaining stocks here. Only got 25 food. Now they have 30 people to feed. That means they've got a whole region worth of starving people if they can't trade for food. Only problem? Well, the Midwest is in between the Southwest and the Northeast. Although we could travel by boat. not through here. From here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 17 hexes. That's not a bad expenditure for distance. So I've got the ability to trade with the Northeast without dealing with the Midwest. And what can I get? You know, that's the question. I think I should be able to get the right to go in here without much problem. But I think also I probably can either get mechs or maybe metal. Metal is going to be tough for the Northeast, though. They don't want to give away metal because that cuts down on their industrial capacity. They may be pushed to that, but on the other hand, does the Southwest really want to buy metal from them when they're not going to be able to produce the levels that they traded for this turn? Unless they can come to some kind of long-term trading arrangement, which would probably be with the Midwest, getting additional metal on a short-term basis will just be a boost to their industry, and then what? Then they got to find someone to trade it with, trade for. But their prospects are looking up quite a bit just based on their high food input. The others got good food. The Far West actually got a bonus in food, but that's only 33 production, which is barely enough to survive. They need 30 to survive. The other 3 is, you know, some of that goes to consumer points, so they're not really gaining yet. And the same thing with the Midwest, who got average production. They've got a pretty good production here. Their output was at 37, but that's only 2 extra. Not a lot of leeway there. And not a lot of room left to add mechs. They have 1 more mech space there. They're going to have to increase some of their sector states in order to be able to keep expanding their economy. I was thinking about the tax table, and I made some comments the turn before that, or sometime, yeah, the turn before it maybe, about how, you know, these rates seem a little high or whatever. You know, they're an abstraction, to tell you the truth. They're not, I'm taxing 10% of the economy or 50% of the economy, I don't believe. I believe what they are is I'm taxing 10% of the number generated here. Don't take it as that's how big a slice of the GDP the government is getting. This is pretty much close to the minimal amount that there's going to be any discretionary money now left. I still think there's room for lower tax rates because, you know, look, you could put that at a 0. Say the government's not going to get any excess money or close to none, yet it still has the money to operate in sort of these primary basic things other than expansion and, well, so there's one problem though, because the government is not the only thing in play here. For example, the production of consumer goods requires cash from somewhere. And well, that's from the player. So that taxation isn't necessarily pure government taxation even. It could be the capitalist increment being taken as well. You've got to really look at the model here not purely as it's represented, is I guess what I'm saying. Anyway, just some thoughts that I meant to get out earlier and they didn't come out. Working along, you know, Far West bought another transport point. They have an intention to start expanding their territory so that they can open up into the trade routes. Likewise, they also bought another consumer set of points, and the rest is spent on mechs. We're at the point, though, where mechs may not be the thing you need to spend on. I've been talking about this. I have basically no room for additional mechs except in the industrial sector, unless I up my points that I'm spending in the sector states. To do that, I have to, well, one, I have to buy This sector stayed up and this sector stayed up. That's going to cost me a couple more. And then I have to pay for every laborer in the metal sector. Now I'm already paying 1, so that would be 3 additional. So I'm looking at 5 more consumer points, essentially. Or an outlay of what looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, I think, per turn. That's, at that point, well, now I can't just produce 1 set of consumer points each turn. I've got to get prepared to produce 2, and then I'll start stockpiling and maybe be able to move forward. Anyway, on to other groups because I've only done the Far West. All right, so the Southwest I went next and did something a little different with them. They know about the food shortages. They have enough food to provide to the Northeast. They're not producing a single mech. In fact, mechs are kind of tough for them. They're counting on being able to acquire some, but they really don't have a lot of places they can throw them in right now. Which means they need lots of consumer points to use mechs. They may be able to trade some consumer points and or food away for additional mechs that other people can produce. This is important because mechs cost less industrial points than they do consumer points. Mechs cost more metal per industrial point to build than consumer points do. I'm sorry, I'm getting really confused because there was some shirtless dude making out with his dog or something. It was just really distracting me. All right. As I move through the Midwest player turn, or not player turn, but they're filling out forms time. And this is all happening simultaneously. A multiplayer game is a lot more fun, or just playing it solo. But that reduces the chances of a victory. They end up seeing this opportunity. Basically, you're allowed to table talk during the production, as far as I'm concerned. If you played without table talk, this game would be hellish. But their own situation says they're better off building mechs. Now, they don't really have a great use for mechs either, unless they can get consumer points. Right now, we could up our fuel production with mechs pretty easily. We could up our metal production and our industry with mechs. So we actually have some stretch left in our economy. However, more consumer points might be useful. We had to build 1 set because we're not going to rely on trade for the ability to maintain where we are. Eventually, maybe the economies become so interconnected that you can't help that. Finally, on to the Northeast. So for the Northeast, they even bought a consumer point because that's what their economy was designed and geared for. They have 9 capacity. Wow, instead of 5 consumer points. It's one of the balancing problems in this game. If you gear your economy towards building an odd number of consumer points or plants or whatever, the things that use up the odd capacity, well, then you end up in this situation where the choices really are, all right, what do you do? Can you break your planned economy? I've got this suggestion that there's deals for food available, but there's only, 9 extra food over here. That's pretty good. It's a healthy amount of food. Because I've dropped down to where I'm at only 23. I'm going to need 7 of that 9. And I really need that. I'm willing to pay in goods to do that. That kept my industry running. The other option would have been an unemployed person or, there's the thought of, why couldn't you just build a plant, right? The problem is I'm short on metal, and I was cutting it exactly again. No extra stockpile left. I used my output to build 6 mechs. I'm willing to trade those mechs away for the food. the mechs don't do me much good if I've got starving people. So, maybe not 6 mechs for 7 food. That sounds a little unreasonable, but who knows? We're kind of over the barrel here. Anyway, one of the things I wanted to mention as I'm going along, because I'm about to take another break, if I can find my dice, because trade is going to be kind of exciting here, is that each of the, when I look at the euros that kind of handle economic type situations on a more abstracted level, I find it very, very hard to kind of picture how the economy is going on and to figure it out. I find it distasteful to step back with a calculator and start calculating out all the things. On the other hand, this game is all about calculating everything out. So the fact that I have to do paperwork and that I have all these values that are just present right there for me to balance, it doesn't bother me as much as in a euro for some reason. The simple addition of this paper format to keep track of some of the information is enough to make it so that I don't mind pre-planning as much, because some of the pre-planning really goes is just forced on you in this. Whereas in some of these other games, I'm just like, well, you know, I don't want to sit down, grab a piece of paper and chart it all out and figure out, okay, what is my best move here? Here, to make any decent, reasonable move, you do have to calculate it all out. All right, now to judge the movement points, we're in the trade phase, but I want to take a quick look at what we're going to cost. I can actually use waterborne transport here. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's almost no movement point cost, assuming the Midwest is involved. If the Midwest is not involved, I must use waterborne transport, and we counted that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, I can, well, no, I can't sail down that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay. To make a round trip would cost 34. And remember, each transport point can only carry like 5 things. Which means 2 transport points have to make it to the Northeast. How many movement points of transport do I have? Well, for my 1 fuel for domestic transport, which I usually spend over here in the consumption round, but really should be spent in the trade round. It hasn't made a difference so far. For that 1 point, let's look at the Southwest to begin with. I've got 8 domestic transport units. So I've only got 40 movement points. So I've got enough for 1 round trip to the Northeast, or several trips up and down this if the Midwest is willing to support it. On the other hand, over here, I've got a reserve transport point, and I've only got 120 points used, so I've got 80 movement points, so I can do a couple of round trips. So I've basically got enough to carry 15 goods in each direction. If it comes out to be more than that, I have to worry about it. Or if the Midwest is not willing to be involved, I absolutely do not have to worry, because that's really cheap. If I wanted to go overland, it would be more expensive. It's basically 5 movement points per hex. So if you can get your waterways, that's what you want to do. And you can do it from any capital. So it's not really too much of a big deal there. All right. Now the question then becomes who needs what and what the bidding is. So over here, you know, the Northeast is the only one who needs food. Absolutely needs it and is willing to pay a premium on it. And they have only 23 food left. They need 7 food. The Midwest would like consumer points and is willing to trade mechs for them. So it's good chance here that the Southwest is going to have a nice stockpile of mechs coming from all this trading. I'll come back after I decide what I actually do. But I did want to show that, yeah, it's pretty trivial as long as these 3 guys are agreed to a trade, to actually trade, and it's pretty trivial amongst any pair of them. The only person who has a really hard time is this guy. Until he hooks up with the Southwest, he's on his own. Now, he has a nice economy, actually, though. So does the Midwest, though. So if you want to be, one power alone, being the Far West is the closest. If you wanted to play solitaire, playing the Far West is the closest to what you'd get in this experience. The Midwest has a lot of advantages. A very good, strong economy, central positioning between two of the other players. Of course, that puts them in the midst of the possibility of a military action, but I don't think that can happen in a 10-turn game if everybody's trying to win or place or something. So the Southwest managed to trade 7 food with the Northeast in exchange for 5 mechs. Their initial offering was 7 food for all 6 of your mechs, and in a sense they've got the Northeast by the balls. There's a little extra food kicking around here. I'm at 35, I've got 2 stock. But honestly, I'm not going to get a good deal pulling 7. That's going to get me 7 food. I need to get some from the Southwest. So the Southwest could have just said, you know what? You don't want that, that's fine. But that is a harsh deal. The 5 mechs is a good payoff. It left some negotiation. The Northeast was willing to accept that, although very begrudging, because they needed the mechs. On the other hand, the Midwest needed consumer points. And I thought, wow, the South has built a lot of consumer points. They have like 19 consumer points. But here's their problem. They're not far from going up to Sector State 2 in their farm sector. You do that, and you're starting to free up your labor and produce a constant supply of food. You can start holding other people over the barrel, or helping them, or whatever you want to call it, for the rest of the game if you have the control over the food. And that's actually kind of good, because look, if the Southwest didn't have this food advantage from this bonus here, the Northeast would have crashed on their own. They needed to pay this. They've still got a chance. They're still in it. So the Southwest kind of said, well, I don't terribly need more mechs. I now have 5 of them. It's not like I can boost this. My other sectors, yeah, I can throw a few extra in, but I don't really need much more than I've just traded for. The Midwest is kind of worried here, but what they find is, well, the Northeast had 10 consumer points. Remember, they built a set of them to equalize their configuration, and they traded away 4 consumer points for 3 mechs. This is kind of a weird situation, because it's hard to tell what's worth what. A set of 5 consumer points is worth more than 2 mechs, but some of the value is just how much is it worth to you right now. The Midwest needed consumer points, and they had some extra mechs. They didn't terribly need them. They had enough to run their economy without them, but they can run it better with them at this point. So, like in Monopoly, trades are usually it benefits both sides, and then it comes to, and it only hurts you if you don't trade, like in the case with the Northeast. If they didn't trade, they would have been screwed. So the Southwest has a little bit more power, but no matter what, you gain a benefit in general by making a trade. Now, you have to assess how much am I helping the other player versus myself, and in Monopoly that's much more clear than in this, where, giving him a boost may not be such a terrible thing for me. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to lose the game to give him a greater odds on me. So, but it's still that same kind of balance. Unfortunately, in this, you're going to have many opportunities to trade. So there's always going to be this equalizing. If somebody's running away with the game, well, maybe we don't trade with him as much. Although the geography and the nature of the actual production may preclude any kind of decision like that. All right, so we're going to the military phase, where we're going to seek some expansion, and I think some people are going to be continuing to do that. This is kind of dangerous, say with the Southwest, if they expand again, and they want to, they've got an agreement, at least from the Northeast, not to go in here, and the Midwest doesn't have the cash or really the inclination. They've kind of backed away from the threat. So if they violate it now, they're calling that threat into play almost blatantly. So the Southwest thinks they're okay going into there. But their problem is, well, I'm stockpiling these consumer points to put this boost forward. And then once I do that, well, then what? You know? Yeah, well, beyond that, it's not so much diarrhea of the mouth here. I'd be adding 5 more population to my society. Now, I need to do this, and some of that population goes into the fuel and it goes into the industry, so it's not that terrible. But it's more people I have to give consumer goods to in the long run to manage that. Very, very careful, though. Don't put things in poor control. If you have things in poor control, it's really hard to get them out of that. So never take that chance if you can help it. Unemployed, starving. Well, starving aren't quite as dangerous, I guess. But unemployed people are bad, and they're very bad. And losing your transportation is bad, because then you have to spend consumer points on reintegrating the area in addition to all the other expenses. It's just a really painful proposition. All right, on to the plebiscite. I forgot the consumption round. I'll have to do that first. That's actually requires a good deal of thought. I started placing my plebiscite markers, but I don't want to do that because I got to figure what the economy is going to be like next turn first. Choices on the sector state positions. The far west ended up boosting its metal sector. The reason is it can add, it's got 4 sites, each of them manned, so it could add 4 more mechs at level 2. That it sees as its main impediment to access. And otherwise they've got everything at social state 1. Southwest went with the, I'm just going to pay for everybody because I'm stockpiling a lot. I don't want to roll on the strike table. I know it's going to come out that way anyway. And I'm not going to try to boost one sector over the other. Not, I can get 1 extra metal that way. Or I can get, maybe, let's see, I have no mechs allocated to industrial yet. So that's of some value to me. I still have some metal stock left. I'm probably going to be interested in stockpiling metal through trade with other people as that becomes more possible. However, if I win this plebiscite, I get another site, that'll help. Over here at fuel, I don't want to boost that. As it stands, I'm only using 1 of the sites anyway. So yes, I could increase my fuel production by adding some mechanization to that. And I could do that pretty much for free. But the thing is, I have other places to put my mechs right now. I have a couple of spaces here. I only have 5. I can throw most of the rest into the industrial without any problem. You know what? I think pulling an extra fuel makes sense. I'm going to spend an extra consumer point on that. And I've got to record that. That doesn't affect my chance of having a strike. There are... Oh, shit, I'm always getting the far west and the southwest screwed up on here. Okay, that's right. So that's 5 consumer points for the southwest, but I want that to be 6. And it was, Jesus, I don't remember now. It was a lot, like 8. I don't know if it was 8 or 9 for the far west. It doesn't matter too much, that's just their income. Anyway, the fact that I've got 1 dude who's getting more consumer points than everyone else means that 39 people are interested in the remaining 13 consumer points. Well, that's not going to break a 0.5, so I don't have to roll at all. You're allowed to overpay a small segment of your society without too much problem at all. I think I did the others too. Hopefully I did them right. Midwest, still staying down at social state 0, and they succeeded to avoid the strike this time. And the Northeast, apparently I didn't do. I guess I got to do them now. All right, well, after watching some Nova, I came back, and here in the military and political round, everybody except the Midwest, everybody who's allowed to, who has a social state of 1, has thrown a plebiscite. Now, we got one here to try to get us to the southern, one here to try to get metal and more industry, and, well, fuel with it. And then up here, the Northeast is going to go for Canada. Remember, I have to pay double for Canada, but that's okay. I have a pile of money, and I really need metal, as far as I'm concerned. And this gives me a route to this. If the Midwest goes up there, I'm cut off from metal for the rest of the game. I'll be just with the sites that I have. So I'm trying to fill out the missing pieces in these economies. My gut and my memory tells me, well, my gut doesn't tell me this. My memory tells me this is a bad idea. You don't want to do plebiscites. You don't want to increase your population. It's going to make your economy bigger and harder to maintain and to push forward. However, well, I'm feeling kind of naive right now, and I haven't been exploring this game as much in other playings, thinking that actually the thing I want to do is get my population lower, or keep it at a low level. Not really want to drop it down to here, because that's dangerous. But anyway, that's what we're going to do. We're going to see some big money being spent there. Obviously, here, it's only $1 base price plus 7 to get the top on the list. So that's only going to cost me $8. But here, at the high end, it's 1, 2, 3 is 6 plus 14 to get to the top. That's going to cost me $20. So the Northeast is going to be spending a lot of their cash on this. They better have 20. Yeah, they do. In order to assure that they have it in good control. Now, for the Northeast, this is risky because this is their only reserve transport. But I feel like I have to do it now, because if I don't, I'm not going to get a chance later. And, you know, you have to at some point take a higher risk move, and they feel like they're falling behind, and by adding this, maybe they'll be boosting themselves a little bit. I'll pay those costs out, pay out the transport for them, figure out where to put them, and then we go to, well, the mechanics of the finance round. Shit, I'm wrong there. Far West and Northeast didn't have consumer points in their stockpile, so they couldn't assume an area. They took their plebiscites off the map. Southwest moved forward. I don't know if I paid the consumer points last turn. You know what? If I cheat and make the Southwest able to win this game, such as what happens, I can't remember what I did in the last one. I think I probably forgot, because I don't remember spending those. I think I had excess left, but God knows. And if I charge them, they're going to be way down. So I don't know. Anyway, only the Southwest is adding, and I have to now figure out what to do with my people. I've transferred a transport point, so now I'm up to 9 domestic transport. I can still pay for that with 1 fuel, but it means I only have 20 points of movement left after that fuel is after I do my domestic transport. That's going to be kind of a problem, because the Southwest is reliant on trade. Now, as long as other people have transport and fuel available, that's great. I have the fuel to spend for more trade, but then that adds to the cost of the trade. When trade is free, because it's just using up excess movement points, that's fine. All right, so now in order to figure this out, I have 5 people, and damned if I know. Let me come back, because I don't know where I'm allowed to put them. I know I'm allowed to put them in those sites, but I don't know how many I'm allowed to put in any given site. That's what I was trying to look up, and then I saw, oh shit, I gotta pay consumer points. That's why you don't expand. Oh, I can't find a reference to it. I think I can just apply them wherever I want. There may be a limitation, but I'm damned if I'm gonna worry about looking through the rules to find it. That's how I play things a lot of times. I mean, fuck it, man. The rules aren't worth ruining your play of the game. And if you can't find a rule, just go on and play it. And maybe you'll see it some other time when you read through. And that's why whenever I play a game, it's not a good idea to learn the game from me. I don't know what the hell these are good for anyway, but anyway. They're good for me keeping you all company, or me pretending that I've got people here to talk to or something. So I've got industrial sites. I've also got the fuel and metal. I can put into any of these. I'm not sure I want to increase my fuel, but I definitely want to throw more people into metal. And here's the thing. How many people can I throw into that site? It's not really... That's where the issue is. Was this a Sector State 1 site where there could be 3 people in the metal industry, or was it a Sector State 0 site where I could only have 1 person there? That's kind of where I feel the discrepancy is, and I think I count it as if it's a Sector State 0 location. So I think I'm only allowed 1 guy in the metal industry and a couple of guys in industry for the 2 industrial sites. Do I want to improve my fuel production? Yes, I do. So I'll put another guy there. That's 4. And I'll throw a guy here into the farm sector. I can always spend to move these guys around a little later. So it's not that big a deal. And I also have to mark down that I'm now up to 45 somewhere. Not there. God damn it. And, you know, when you're playing these kind of games, the 40 was because of the plebiscite that I can't do. When you're playing these kind of games, sometimes you screw up and you end up cheating or whatever in your favor, even when you're playing opposed. And you know what? So what? As long as you're trying to be honest, the hell with it. You catch yourself cheating and you bring it out to people and say, hey, I was cheating. And that happens too. Alright, where the hell am I? It's better than making yourself miserable. It's better to cheat at a game than make yourself miserable. So now we're at the stockpile labor reallocation, and here's where I cheat by putting my mechs in place at this point, because it makes the game a little simpler. Time to make some calculations, though. And you know, in a sense, with the plebiscites, it really should have happened earlier, because those are an undetermined factor, but it isn't worth the effort. It just isn't. And I'll go forward trying to assign and allocate my economy for next turn. Now next turn gets weird because I'm going to have more people. I don't know how many more, 10 or 20% more. I think it's 10% more. Which means every population is going to get, like, you know, 4 more people, 5 more people added to it, who aren't really associated with an area. If you lose control of the area, you don't lose those people, so you could end up actually with no areas and some people, but you can't do anything with them. You could farm. They're like sea farmers or something. And as always, this game just starts providing more and more headaches. I hate things where I have to pre-plan this much. Anyway, for the far west, I thought I was doing pretty well with them with a nice balanced economy, but I got 4 mechs I got nothing to do with. I've transferred some people out of where I could. So I've got 3 laborers in the metal sector now only. But because I upped the sector state, I can have 6 mechs there. Okay, that's great. You know, I got this filled up, I got this even up. I've got this even up. I got nowhere else to put the extra mechs. So they're kind of rotting at this point. I get to roll on the excess mechs table for them. What's not really clear here, these are new mechs. They're not excess. They just got produced. I'm also going to leave them on the trade chart because it's easier than trying to guess where I could use them later. Again, probably cheating. Well, definitely cheating, but probably doesn't mean much, and it reduces my anxiety about dealing with this shit a little bit more. I really hate this game. I hate it as much as I hate the heavy Euros for the same kind of reason. Although this one tells a better story and I can understand what I'm doing, and I said that earlier, it's still, why the hell would anybody want to do this? Yeah, some people have fun with it. It ain't my taste at all. It's a lot better just playing one side, either in a solo game or in an opposed game. In an opposed game, it's kind of fun because you get to laugh at everybody fucking up all over the place. Because unlike a Euro, I've never seen anybody do this right. Anyway, I've been paying a significant amount of money to fiddle my population around. Now it's time to roll depreciation and see how badly my plans go. Huh? Depreciation is pretty simple for the most part. We've gone through it a few times, but there's one ugly part, which is counting your fucking max. Everything else, well, at least it gives you a double check to make sure, and I needed it, that you've paid off your stockpiling costs. You don't want to not have, you don't want to leave output out there at this point. But here for the mechs, what do I have to do? I have to add up all these numbers. They're all over the place. So 27, 28, 34, and 8 is 42 working mechs. It's not that terrible, but when you start getting frustrated by everything else in this fucking game, it gets pretty bad. When you get annoyed by the goddamn used car salesman who lives underneath you and sells cars to boot, making it impossible to think. Now, I'm not sure what to do because I just took, with the 40 whatever mechs that I had, I ended up taking, that requires 2 rolls, one on this column and one on the 3 roll. I ended up taking 4 mech loss. Well, I still got to roll for the excess because they were still there. So that would have been a possible shot, but it's not. But I'm just going to drain these guys and say, hey, that's what they're around for. They're replacement parts or something like that. Again, cheating, but who the hell? Things feel like they're really going off the rails, maybe because I'm forgetting shit, maybe because I'm getting so pissed at playing this piece of crap. But, yeah, my capacities that I ended up buying towards or whatever, I don't have the people allocated for them, and I really don't give a shit anymore, so I'm just going to play this out and hate on it. We move to turn 4 here, and that's a population growth phase. And guess what? That means another little fiddly mechanical thing, but that's all this game is, right? All you're doing is moving these little sliders around. Okay. It's just, it gets so fucking annoying. So at this point, now I've got to add population everywhere. This guy, whoever the hell he is, has 45 population. Well, that's not right, is it? Yeah, it is. So now he gains 5 more, and I can allocate them wherever the hell I like, into any sectors. Which actually means, because this is a population turn, those numbers are wrong that I replaced, and that's why it was okay to leave them where they were. Ah, fuck. Well, we'll try to figure out what they should have been. I guess I'm at the end here. I wish it were the end. Yeah, this is a pretty goddamn miserable game. And that's what I have to say about it. And I kind of want to just clean it up and put it aside, because it does not do anything. But now that I've started it on video, well, I've managed to get through some videos where I've had games go completely against my expectations from prior plays in terms of solving. So I've got that stupid sort of hope with this. Also that my fucking neighbors will die, but apparently they've bought a place. So I'm stuck with them here, selling cars out of my backyard all the time. Yeah, it's, I threw most of the extra population into the farming because I couldn't figure out what the hell I had done wrong, where I had reduced my capacity. I'm pretty sure I had done it here, so I upped his because he just was so hosed anyway by it. But everybody's kind of probably set back a turn, where if they plan for this population growth turn well, you can actually use it as a boost and help yourself pull yourself up. And I don't think anybody's going to be able to do that because A, I wasn't able to think, and B, I probably still won't be able to think. So you're just going to see this shit-ass rant going on and on and on. And look, I'm about a third of the way through the game. Yay. Not quite.